I'm going to start by just showing you, this is a shallow super. There's also mediums. So it's a smaller honey super. But here's what the bees do. They make a bunch of wax and beautiful comb like that. And this is a 9-frame configuration, so they build the comb out proud of the wood. You can see that on the edge there. And that makes the extraction process easier, because when we cut the caps off, you'll see how that works. If all of this was below the wood, the capping knife wouldn't work. All right, so both sides of this is filled with beautiful honey and a bee. All right, so let's just go over to the uncapping tank. So what you see down here is a bunch of work I've already done. These are caps from other frames I've been harvesting for a while now. So here's the hot knife, very hot. And I just start it right here in the middle. Oh, that never happens. Start it right here in the middle and push down. And I get the bottom. And then come up and get the top. All right, and those cappings lay in this capping tank here. And they drain down and they come out. You can see this bucket over here is filling up with honey very slowly as the cappings relieve their honey, and it gets down into that. All right, so here it is again, bottom and then up. Beautiful. Uncapped honey frame. So here's an uncapped honey frame. And actually you can see on this frame there's 2 different types of honey. Here's this nice golden early spring honey, which they capped and left. And then here is a different floral source and a much darker honey. Right, so bees just will fill the comb with whatever they're foraging on at any given time, but they're not uniformly filled. So that's why you can call this a wildflower honey, because it's not just one variety, it's a bunch of wildflowers. So then this goes in the extractor. We're going to put 6 of these in this extractor, and then we'll turn it on. Right now, I'm in the process of loading it, so we'll do that. But one thing I wanted to show you about the hot knife. So the hot knife over here is sitting there, and see that little boiling action on that hot knife? It's actually boiling honey, because it's pretty hot, and it has wax on it also. So if you keep extracting like that, this tool, without cleaning this tool will get brown, and I think it taints the honey. So in my opinion, you just have to wipe that off with a nice clean rag and water. And I do this every once in a while. I don't have to do it every time I uncap a frame, but I do it every like 3rd or 4th frame. See, now it can sit there and stay warm, and it's not doing anything to affect the honey at all. All right? So this is an example of a frame where bees did something different. Even though they had plenty of space to build out this comb, they decided to choose to keep their wax and honey, for some reason, natural reason, underneath the wood. So here's what I can do with the knife. Hardly anything. See, just about, that's all I can do. All right, so now, what do you do about the rest? Okay, so there's a couple of tools here. One is a roller, has little points on it. See those little points? So you can roll that on this frame, and it sort of makes holes in the top of the capping. If you can see that. Little holes on top there. And you have to do this pretty thoroughly across the whole frame where the cap still is. So keep doing it. And let's see. Got it all? And then there's another one called the capping scratcher, which I like to use. You think you're damaging the comb when you're using this, but you're really not. You'll see when you can see when after this is extracted. Now, this is not a good thing to do because it slows the whole process down, but it also does something else. See all these little wax particles? You have to filter all of them out, and they'll clog a filter after a while. So it's best if you get your bees to obey and actually build comb out like that. Of course, now you can see how different it is to uncap this side. Okay, one other little trick we're going to show you here in a minute. You can flip your comb away from you with the bottom bar facing out, and you can slice off this burr comb with your hot knife. That makes it go into the extractor much easier. Down into the extractor. All right. So just one little tip on using a hot knife for extraction. If you're going to go over cells that don't have any honey in them, they tear out. So you have to be very careful. You have to slow down when you go over those cells, because you don't really want to damage this comb, because this is a comb you're going to use next year to make honey. But when a cell has honey in it, it's supported, and the hot knife slices right through it. When there's no honey in it, you can see right here what happens, right? It gets crumbled. But you can avoid that by just going slow. See how the cap comes right off on the unfilled combs? So if you slow down, you won't damage the comb. See, right there. Versus this part where I went fast with the knife and it damaged the comb. All right? So that's the way you get past a comb that's partially filled. All of this extractor is filled with 6 combs that have been uncapped. So as you can see, all the honey is still in them. And so I'm going to start it, and we'll see how balanced it is. The first thing we're looking for when we start this extractor is that it's balanced. So it's not really wobbling a lot. In this case, that's because the bees have filled these combs really nicely, so they all weigh about the same. And what you judge for, I don't know if you can see this, but if you judge the sidewall of the extractor, you can see the honey coming right out of the comb at that point. And that's how you know that there's still a lot of honey in the comb. That will stop eventually when all the honey is out. And I'll just increase the speed a little bit because we have a nice balanced load. So this process takes about 5 or 6 minutes, and because it's nice and balanced at this point, it'll just run like that. You can just let it run. Shouldn't let it run without the top on it, so for safety's sake, don't put this top on right here. And probably not when it's running, but anyway. So filtering this, I give this an initial filtering of 600 mesh, and then there's a second filtration in our bottling tank at 300 micron. So we don't take a lot of the particles, the pollen out of the honey, just the big particles. This bucket is full, so we'll move this aside. Now to get the last bit of that honey down at the bottom of the tank out, you can see that it's actually below the gate valve, or it will be shortly. So one real neat way to get that out is to tilt this tank forward, and the nice part about the way the legs are separated and where the bucket is, it acts as sort of like a little bridge. You can keep going as much as you want, and then that'll all go out. Now you can see all the honey's at the gate now. So a lot more honey's coming out. As you can see in the tank, it'll drain all of it out. Makes cleanup a lot easier.